At this afternoon's top stories, gospel concert kicks off government's anniversary week of activities. Relatives of Brazil police officers continue the fight for higher pay, and the fashion industry takes a stand against Donald Trump. Hello and welcome to the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Today is February the 13th, 2017. I am Shaira Flanders. Nationally, as part of its 2-year anniversary celebrations, the Team Unity administration hosted its gospel extravaganza at Greenlands Park on Sunday night. The gospel concert featured several local entertainers, including Radical Praise, African Worship Team, Ali D, and Orville Liddy. Persons were also treated to a performance by American gospel singer and songwriter Jonathan Nelson. The concert began at 6:30 p.m. and ran until the wee hours of the morning. And in a related story, the Team Unity administration's week of activities continued today when the federal cabinet met on Nevis for the very first time. The activities resumed this evening with a Good Governance and Accountability for Prosperity town hall meeting at the St. Paul's Anglican Church Hall in Charlestown, Nevis from 7:30 p.m. The organizing committee has arranged for free transportation of persons who wish to attend the town hall in Nevis via the MV Carib Queen. The boat will leave St. Kitts at 6 p.m. and make a return trip from Nevis half an hour after the town hall ends. The town hall meeting will be feature addressed by Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris, as well as Premier of Nevis, the Honorable Vance Amory, and Deputy Premier, the Honorable Mark Brantley. The week of activities will continue on Tuesday, February 14th, with cabinet ministers and other government officials holding wide-ranging consultations with community members from 4 p.m. International social skills consultant and crime reduction specialist Dr. Neil Chaitan made a call for teenagers to not smoke marijuana as it is a mind-altering drug which affects the development of the brain. Chaitan said it reduces thinking, memory, and learning functions, and how the brain builds connections between the areas necessary for these functions. Speaking at the National Crime Reduction Symposium on Thursday, Dr. Chaitan said that he has witnessed the ruin of young minds due to smoking marijuana and encouraged adults to not give it to the teenagers, in particular teenage boys, as they are in their formative stage. The crime reduction specialist referred to an article that spoke about teenagers who smoke weed, noting that it damages their brains for life and that they may be more likely to develop schizophrenia. Dr. Chaitan warned that using psychoactive drugs do not solve problems. He reminded parents and teachers to act as positive role models in the lives of teenagers and to do so in all their power to ensure that they walk the straight and narrow path. He said every time such information is presented, persons often disagree, but noted that there is evidence to prove that the use of marijuana is dangerous, especially to teenagers. Moving on to news on the regional scene in the Brazilian state of Espírito Santo, some police officers have begun returning to work a week after a strike paralyzed several cities and led to a spike in violence that left more than 130 people dead. But their relatives who are blockading police stations are promising to continue fighting. Al Jazeera's Alessandro Rampiatti reports.
Not over yet. Relatives of military police officers in the Brazilian city of Victoria blockade police stations here and across the state of Espírito Santo.
Governor, we are waiting for an agreement. This won't end. We won't give up. Don't think you can push us over. You're not going to achieve it.
The officers were ordered back to work hours before, but their families say they'll continue to the fight for higher pay. Members of the military police are forbidden to strike here, so their relatives took the lead. Late at night, they blocked an ambulance sent to ferry officers out of the barracks, many of whom are at a breaking point. Helicopters on the station roof produced better results. Their relatives say they're being forced into action.
This is a low blow from the government. It wants us to believe that the cops are sick. They're cheating the population and are pretending they're sick.
Earlier in the day, some police officers could be seen around town. The men in this plaza are actually military police. They're part of the strike, but they have been told to come here and in other parts of the city to get back to duty. But most of them don't have a uniform because they've haven't been able to access it inside their barracks. None of them would speak to us on camera, but off the record what they're saying is that they are here because they fear retaliation. They could face up to 7 years in prison for rebellion. Espiritu Santo has seen a major wave of violence, looting and chaos since the police walked off the job. At least 137 people have been killed. The federal government sent more than 3,000 troops to restore order.
Today, we can say that here in Vitória, we have superior policing than what there used to be on normal days.
The strike in Espiritu Santo might soon be over as the federal government takes control, but many fear it could inspire new protests in other states in economic crisis who are struggling to pay policemen and public servants. Alessandro Ampieti, Al Jazeera, Vitória, Brazil.
The president of Guyana Bar Association is being sued over the sale of city property. More in this report.
An email surfaced today placing President of the Guyana Bar Association, Jem Sanford Johnson, at the center of a lawsuit after selling a Queenstown property for which he was named power of attorney by an overseas client. The lawsuit, filed on behalf of the property owner, claims that after selling the property in June 2015, Johnson only wired $2.4 million of the total purchase price of $35 million to the owner. In a telephone interview, Johnson said that the lawsuit is malicious, and after selling the property, she traveled to America and was unable to meet with the client who was ill at the time. Johnson said that she was contacted by 2 strangers claiming to be the guardians of the client. Johnson claimed that while the client has already received part of the proceeds of the sale, the plaintiffs, represented by the former president of the Bar Association, Ronald Birch Smith, have asked for the whole sum of $35 million. In the lawsuit, the plaintiffs allege that Johnson has no intention of repaying the $32.5 million or explaining how the money was divided. However, according to Johnson, once the claim is corrected to reflect the amount given to the client, the money will be paid. The trial, which was presided over by Chief Justice Yonette Cummings Edwards of the High Court on February 2nd, has been postponed until later this month. Reporting for Capital News, Keisha Jilks.
Moving on to news on the international scene, elements of the U.S. fashion industry are taking a stand against President Donald Trump at the ongoing New York Fashion Week. Stores like Nordstrom and TJ Maxx are also quietly phasing out the president's daughter, Ivanka's clothing line, citing sluggish sales. Al Jazeera's Kristen Salumi reports from New York.
Fashion designer Richard Seiko says he's always been inspired by his homeland. But this season, the New York-based Mexican is really making a statement.
Mexico, a pluribus unum. In the back, U.S. with the blue and the France walking together.
His latest collection, featured at New York Fashion Week, is based on the colors of the Mexican and American flags and his opposition to the United States' new president.
Fashion is that what happened in the street, that what happened in the world. Like I'm like Mexican and like I'm immigrant in U.S., I can share what I feel.
Overt political statements may be rare on the runway, but there are signs that the fashion elite, many of whom put their money behind Hillary Clinton, are having a hard time coming to grips with Donald Trump and his presidency. No one knows at this point what his policies could mean for an industry that relies heavily on immigrant labor and goods from China, but people are worried.
Some designers made a point of saying they wouldn't dress First Lady Melania Trump, a former model, for the inauguration. And with activists nationwide calling for boycotts of Trump products, stores like Nordstrom and TJ Maxx are quietly phasing out the president's daughter Ivanka's clothing line, citing sluggish sales.
Designers are in a precarious position because obviously they want sales. And they want to have a beautiful woman like Melania wear the clothes because she looks good in them. But at the same time, they do not want to give the impression that they are supporting the administration. Most fashion people are Democrats, or at least they're progressives.
Meantime, there are signs that activism is in. 4 fashion magazines and 1 high-end department store have asked to feature Ricardo Seika's latest collection. Kristen Salumi, Al Jazeera, New York.
More than 180,000 people have been forced to leave their homes in the U.S. state of California after warnings that part of the tallest dam in the country could collapse. Roads leading out of Oroville in Butte County were jammed as residents tried to drive out of the danger zone. California's governor has issued an emergency order to help with the evacuations. Al Jazeera's Emike Omolo has the details.
Thousands of people were simply told to head north to get as far away from the dam as they could. Entire communities left their homes in the middle of the night.
I recognize how tough this situation is on people. I recognize that we've had to displace a lot of people. But as you've heard tonight, we needed to do that to ensure the public safety.
The alarm was raised a week ago when the reservoir behind the dam reached its capacity.
Water that wasn't flowing in a uniform manner, which it normally does in the when the spillway is operating normally. And so we called it in. We were able to shut the spillway off and did an inspection and found that a large hole had formed in the base of the spillway. And so that was what started this event.
By Saturday, water levels had risen so high that the emergency spillway, seen here on the left of the main spillway, was used. This caused more concern because it's the first time it's happened in the dam's 50-year history.
When we had water coming over the top of the emergency spillway, it was beginning to erode the ground, right? And when you start to erode the ground and the dirt and everything else starts to roll off the hill, it starts to undermine itself.
But experts have now concluded that there is no chance of damage to the dam itself, especially because of all the work going into lowering the water levels. The task now is to keep the water levels down and fix the hole, and it's not clear if both can be done at the same time. The local sheriff's department says the plan is to use helicopters to drop rocks into the crevasse to plug the hole. Emike Omolu, Al Jazeera.
And now for the weather. Present weather is partly cloudy. Winds are variable at less than 7 miles per hour. Bathers are asked to exercise caution as waves up to 6 feet have been recorded. The weather forecast for today and tonight predicts partly cloudy skies with a slight chance of showers. Sunset today will be at 6:12 p.m. and sunrise tomorrow will be at 6:37 a.m. That brings us to the end of the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Join us this evening for these stories and more in detail. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am Shaira Flanders. Have a good one.